Wormont, shut up. I don't have time for you. There's new Last of Us, and you're the last of anyone I'd want to talk to, you dick. So there's been 2 episodes of Last of Us, and I wasn't really good at, like, talk about each one. I'm just gonna maybe let a couple of them happen, and then do this. Episode 2 was cool. This is a bit of a change, because it's the episode that covers Tess's death. Spoilers. And instead of running into, like, raiders and stuff, they go to, I think, the same museum you fight them in the game, but instead they're running from a horde of... They're not running from... Did I even see things? They're just trying to get through because they're trying to meet up with fireflies. That's what happened! And they need to cut through the museum. And at one point they climb up, I think, on the museum, and they see, like, They see a horde of infected, and they establish a cool new thing in this universe, and that's the cordyceps and the fungies. They all talk to each other across a network of fungus. Trust that. Don't trust that fungus. That fungus is bad. They can communicate across a vast network of fungus across, basically, I don't even know. I don't know what the distance is, because later on they end up running from that horde when I forget exactly what happens. Somebody like steps on some fungus, and it wakes up a bunch of the dudes, the horde. It alerts them to the people's location in the museum. And like at one point, there's before that though, they're sneaking through the museum and they run into clickers and they look and sound like clickers and they have to like hide from them and sneak past them and fight them. And then Tess gets like secretly bitten. I think that's how that happens in the game too. But then like in the museum, they accidentally trigger the fungus horde into coming after him, and Tess stays behind, basically sacrifice herself and blow up and try to kill them all. And that was that episode. Really well explained, but it was good. Like they added the whole rule about the network of fungus cordyceps things communicating. Like that wasn't really in the game at all, but and they even mentioned in the making of that it was a cool new concept they wanted to incorporate. And Tess makes out with the tendril things of a dude because she's struggling to blow up the museum. She can't get the lighter like going, and one of the fungus comes up and like kisses her, I guess, to finish infecting her. What is my cat doing besides pissing me off? But yeah, they make out and she lights the lighter and blows the place up. Glenn, what are you doing? Making me forget my points, that's what. I think in the original game she just gets like shot trying to hold off raiders. But yeah, in this she holds off the infected and burns them and blows out the museum. And they were supposed to meet the fireflies there. That was like the original point where they were going to drop Ellie off, but they'd all gotten killed by someone or something. Maybe raiders? I think raiders got them and they got eaten by the infected. I don't know. So yeah, that was episode 2. Episode 3 was an even bigger departure, which I've already seen people upset about. And I wonder what could possibly be upsetting them here. Because it's got Bill and Frank. When? Stop! And I don't remember if this is how it was in the game. It might have been implied. But it's definitely happening in this episode. They're a couple. And the episode centers around like their romance and their love story and history together. And it's a huge departure from the game because Joel doesn't actually meet up with Bill. Instead, you see how he and Tess met Bill and Frank kind of originally. Because you see Bill was, the same guy. The dude that's like really good with mechanics and electronics and stuff. And he's got a house that has a secret bunker in it with a bunch of weapons. And he's got a truck and a battery and everything works. And you see how he hid from Fedra when they were taking people out into a quarantine zone, but really they were killing them because there was no space for them. But Bill didn't get caught by that. He stayed in his basement and then kind of just took over the town and lived there alone. And then Frank wanders into one of his traps and he helps him out. And they just kind of become a couple from there. And the episode centers around their life together, and Frank sort of made Bill nicer because Bill hated people and I hate people, and this episode kind of reminded me that some people don't suck. It was a really weird parallel, because Frank reminds Bill that, you know, there's something that good. There's people you could like out there that kind of give you purpose. And in the original game, I think Frank was just like some asshole friend of his that kind of pissed him off, and they sort of had a fight and didn't really talk to each other. And I think Frank like hangs himself or gets killed. I'm pretty sure he hangs himself. I think he does kill himself. But in this, they stay together the whole time, and obviously they're a lot more romantic, and Frank seems to like come down with some kind of cancer. There's even a moment where they try to make you think Bill is gonna die because raiders show up at the house and Bill gets shot trying to fend them off. But then it cuts to later on, and it's Frank that's like sick from cancer, and it's apparent it's taking its toll on him, and Bill's just kind of taking care of him. And well, they're a lot older, because I think it's like a 15-year time jump or something, because this was in like 2007, I think. I lost track. But oh yeah, before that, Frank had been trying to like kind of set the street up that they had cordoned off, because Bill, like I said, took over the town, and his street was sectioned off with electric fences and traps, and Frank wanted to like liven the place up and take care of it and have friends over. And you find out he had been talking to Tess and Joel on the radio, and they kind of established a business relationship where they get each other needed supplies and stuff. And that's like the only time you see Joel and Bill, Frank and Tess together. They just kind of meet there, and sort of it's established they knew each other and did business, I guess. Because yeah, back to like the point I was talking about, Frank has cancer and he wants to go on like one last good day to bury stuff to Bill, and then have Bill kill him using like a bunch of pills and wine. And after they do like their wedding ceremony, whatever they did, it sort of just skips around and shows all the spots where they like hung out and stuff during this day. But Frank asks Bill to like put a bunch of his medication and stuff together, or just some unknown pills, it's not really clear, and put them in his wine, and then he drinks it, and he wanted to like die in Bill's arms. But then like the twist comes when Frank drinks the wine with the pills in it, and Bill drinks his own glass super fast, and I think Frank says something like, the wine already had pills in it, didn't it? And Bill goes, yep, enough to kill a horse. With the whole thing being that Bill was killing himself too. And he said that Frank was like his purpose, and he already had his fulfilling life, so he wanted to die with him. And Frank's like, I don't support that, kind of jokingly. And then they go off into bed together and die. And then it cuts to like, I don't even know how much later, because this was in 2023. But then Joel and Ellie sort of wander to the house, because they've been planning to meet Bill, I think, to try and just get supplies and help. They've been running low on him along the way. And they just find a note. And that's the note where Bill says, you know, he hated people, but Frank gave him someone not to hate. And he mentions how he and Joel both, you know, have a person to protect and live for. God help anybody that gets in their way. But then the note kind of says like, hey, take what you need to protect Tess. And Ellie's the one reading it, and kind of a sad moment because Tess had just died. Earlier in the episode, Ellie even like says like, hey, don't be blaming me for her death, because you all chose to do this. And it's sort of like a plot twist. You think she's going to apologize, but she's like, no, I'm trying to tell you, it's not my fault. Then she like tries to apologize, and Joel cuts her off. But then it cuts to them in the truck. And by cuts to them, I mean, not really. They get the truck that they get in the game and, you know, start off on their adventure to the city to try and basically find Joel's brother, who can then help them find the Fireflies, who then can cut Ellie's brain open and cure the world. Spoilers, Joel makes a decision that's kind of selfish and doesn't let them do that. So then the cordyceps virus continues. It's fungus. You've been making fungus jokes earlier in the video and you forgot. Idiot. But yeah, like, this episode was an even bigger departure from the game than episode 2 was. And in both cases, like, they did things to kind of streamline things and add to the original story, and I think kind of making improvements. I saw some of the making of right after, and the game creator even said, like, they're going through the plot when they were writing this, and if it was something they changed that was either as good or worse, they didn't bother changing it. But if it was a change they felt that was like better, they included it. So they weren't just changing things to change things, I guess. They were actually trying to like add to the story, deviate when it makes things like good only if it actually is better. I've seen a lot of people get mad about the whole romance thing, and I'm wondering, you know, why they might be mad. There is a sex scene between the two guys at one point. I'm sure that made a lot of people happy. Like, in general, I don't like sex scenes in my media. Because, like, you're watching a show, then all of a sudden, porn. I don't even know if I can go back to Game of Thrones and watch any of it because somebody's getting dick. Because somebody's getting dick down every like 15 minutes. I don't need to see that again and again. But I mean, yeah, I didn't really have any problems with it. I mean, their sex scene kind of lingered on, so I'm just kind of like sitting there awkwardly like, all right, can we get back to the rest of their story and like the fucking apocalypse and stuff that's going on? I don't need to see him going down. I don't need to see Frank going down on Bill. You do see a little bit of that. They don't get too gratuitous or anything. It's just, you know, it's a sex scene. It kind of lingers for a bit. And yeah, it definitely triggered some people who were like, oh, this is deviated too far. Like, okay, it did a good job of deviating while being a good addition. Like the whole tragic romance there, that was way better than what Frank and Bill were in the original game. Bill was like a crotchety old asshole who did have heart, but Frank was just some dude that like basically killed himself, and you don't really know how they were like connected. They seem to hate each other. It's almost like your stereotypical country dudes hating each other and one's the dumb friend or something. I don't know how to explain it, but I've seen it before. There's a trope for it. Damn it. Gotta be. But yeah, what they did in this was, I thought it was good. I thought it was an acceptable change, an improvement. Just like the cordyceps thing with them all connected and communicating and adding that level of danger. Like you can't walk on fungus because you don't know if it's alerting a horde miles away to your location because it straight up wakes them up and communicates exactly where they're going to be. Yeah, there's been some cool changes so far. And episode 3 was like more of a touching, kind of slower story about Bill and his tragic life. But like the ending, I actually like what they did because I was worried for Bill. I was sad that he was going to be all alone, but he ultimately chooses to kill himself with his husband, which, yeah, I guess they got married. Something. It was cool seeing Bill get like humanized and become human again. It was a slower paced episode that actually managed to still be good. And the next episode looks like it's going to be lots of shoot and fighting with raiders, which is something they've been kind of skipping around when streamlining the story, really. Because you fight a bunch of... Well, no, they fight a bunch of cordyceps, I think, when they meet Bill. You don't really see a whole lot of them in this episode. You see one walk into a tripwire and get his head fucking shot in one of Bill's traps, so that's cool. But yeah, I like what they've been doing with episode 2 and 3 so far. I mean, it's an HBO series, so we'll at least get one good season. I think I said that last fucking time. But I am interested to see like what they change. Because it was cool how episode 1 was a lot like the game, really, with a few changes here and there. But you were still like watching the game play out. But episode 2 and 3 are major story beats being streamlined with some changes here and there that kind of improve things overall. So I'm interested to see what happens next. Because I think they're running into the raiders when they are driving through the city, and it's when they like lose their truck. And I look forward to seeing Joel and Ellie kind of become more like the father-daughter duo they were when Joel gets his fucking head beaten in. Maybe that'll change. Streamline that. Streamline and improve Joel's head being caved in. Alright, shut the fuck up. Oh, I forgot we didn't get to see Bill and Ellie banter because Bill was dead. With his husband in their, like, bed. Yep.